Once upon a time, there were two people standing at the same edge of exhaustion. Their lives looked different from the outside, but inside, they were experiencing the same quiet collapse. The same weight in the chest, the same thought looping again and again. I can't do this anymore. One of them walked away, convinced they had reached their limit. The other stayed, endured, and somehow survived. Years later, people would call that survivor strong, disciplined, gifted, or lucky. But none of those words explained what truly happened in that moment, because the difference was not strength. It was something far less visible and far more powerful. When life becomes painful, we are taught to look for motivation. We are told to be positive, to push harder, to develop discipline, to silence doubt. These ideas sound convincing when life is calm. But when suffering deepens, when sleep disappears, when hope thins, when the mind feels like a locked room, those tools fail. Motivation fades. Discipline fractures. Positive thinking feels like an insult. And yet, some people still continue, not because the pain hurts less, but because it means something different to them. The human mind is not designed to endure endless pain without reason. At its core, the brain is a survival machine, constantly calculating whether the energy it is spending is worth the cost. Every challenge triggers an unconscious question. Is this pain useful, or is it pointless? If the answer feels pointless, the system begins to shut down. Focus weakens, willpower drains. Even getting out of bed feels heavy. Quitting no longer feels like failure. It feels logical. This is the hidden variable that decides whether you quit or survive. It is not intelligence. It is not greed. It is not confidence. It is meaning, or more precisely, the meaning you attach to your suffering. Two people can experience the same hardship and react in completely different ways, not because one is weaker, but because their minds are telling different stories about the pain. To one person, suffering feels like proof that something is wrong, that life is unfair, that effort is useless. To the other, the same suffering feels like a signal evidence that something important is being built, tested, or protected. The pain itself does not change. Only its interpretation does. The psychiatrist Viktor Frankl discovered this truth in the darkest place imaginable, inside concentration camps, where starvation, fear, and loss were constant. He noticed something strange. Those who believed their suffering had no meaning deteriorated quickly. They lost the will to live long before their bodies failed. But those who attached even the smallest purpose to their pain, someone waiting for them, a responsibility unfinished, a future they still believed in, found a way to endure what should have been impossible. Frankl realized that humans can survive almost anyhow if they have a why. This does not mean pain becomes easy. It means pain becomes tolerable. The mind can carry extraordinary weight if it believes the burden serves something beyond itself. Quitting is often misunderstood. We like to explain it as weakness, laziness, or lack of discipline. But people rarely quit at the peak of pain. They quit at the moment the pain stops making sense, when effort no longer feels connected to growth, when sacrifice feels invisible, when the future collapses into a blank wall. In that moment, survival itself feels pointless. Consider the student who studies for years, only to feel like their efforts lead nowhere. Or the athlete who trains relentlessly but loses their sense of identity beyond winning. Or the person trapped in emotional exhaustion, giving everything and feeling seen by no one. They do not quit because they are incapable. They quit because the meaning that once carried them has eroded. The mind protects itself from meaningless suffering. When meaning disappears, the brain reduces energy output. It slows you down. It numbs you. It whispers escape. Not because it wants to destroy you, but because it believes quitting is the safest option available. Yet, some people endure conditions that seem unbearable from the outside. Prisoners survive years of confinement. Patients endure painful treatments. Individuals rebuild after trauma that reshapes their entire identity. What allows them to survive is not optimism. Often, they feel fear, anger, and despair just as deeply. The difference is that their suffering is anchored to something larger than the pain itself. Sometimes, that anchor is another person. A child, a parent, someone who would be affected by their absence. Sometimes, it is a future self, they refuse to abandon. Sometimes it is a promise, a belief, or even defiance, a quiet refusal to let suffering be the final author of their story. Meaning does not have to be noble or poetic. It only has to be strong enough to answer the brain's question. Why should I continue? There is a moment in every long struggle where the mind reaches a breaking point. This is the moment most people misunderstand. It is not the moment of maximum pain. It is the moment where identity begins to fracture. When someone thinks, this isn't who I am anymore, or this effort no longer represents anything at that point. Quitting feels like reclaiming control. Understanding this gives you power, because if meaning is the hidden variable, it is also something you can influence. The first step is to redefine the pain. Pain by itself is chaotic, but pain connected to growth becomes structured. Ask yourself not, why is this happening to me? But what could this be building in me? Strength, patience, clarity, boundaries, resiliencies are not abstract traits. They are forged through specific forms of discomfort. When pain is framed as construction rather than punishment, the mind resists less. The second step is to borrow, meaning when your own feels weak. Not every season of life comes with a clear sense of purpose. In those moments, survival can be enough. Sometimes you endure not because you feel inspired, but because someone else needs you to remain standing. Borrowing meaning is not weakness. It is a psychological bridge that keeps you alive until your own purpose returns. The third step is to anchor yourself to the future. The mind suffers most when it believes pain will last forever. But if you can vividly imagine a version of yourself shaped by endurance, pain transforms into an investment. Ask yourself, who will I become if I don't quit here? That future identity can pull you forward when present motivation is gone. Philosophers have wrestled with suffering for centuries. The Stoics believed pain was unavoidable, but interpretation was within our control. Existential thinkers argued that meaning is not discovered, but created. Life does not offer a guaranteed sense of purpose. It offers moments of choice, moments where you decide what your suffering will represent. This does not mean forcing positivity or denying reality. It means facing pain honestly while refusing to let it remain meaningless. Meaning does not erase suffering. It gives suffering a direction. If you are struggling right now, know this. The urge to quit does not mean you are broken. It means your mind is searching for a reason to continue. The exhaustion you feel is not a lack of strength. It is a signal that the hidden variable meaning has weakened or disappeared. And that means it can be rebuilt. You do not need to change your entire life overnight. You only need to answer one question clearly enough to keep going. Why is this worth enduring today? The answer can be small. It can be temporary. It can even be uncertain. But it must exist. Because in the end, survival is not decided by how much pain you can tolerate. It is decided by whether your pain has a purpose. The moment suffering becomes meaningful, quitting loses its logic, and endurance, even in the darkest moments, becomes possible.